Composting composite, reciprocal rhizomes, or worming as an art practice. Composting composing a crafty communion, crumbling creaking the ebbs of fruition. Here you might find how we can learn from non-human animals and ecological systems as a way to look at art and make art. A not-so-concrete visualization of this allegory might be a web in which worms can travel through and experience multifluous forms along the way. Each time they encounter one of these forms, it is digested and passes through them. Each time it becomes anew, these forms being art history, and this web being a non-linear interconnected root system, suggests a way of tracing art history, not really as history. Each encounter with a separate sporking tendril of the subterranean beast is birthing. Each digestion and iteration breathes a freshness. The connectivity which sparks within this rhizomatic model points to a hopeful future of art history archiving, something that does not conform to linearity, hierarchy, or colonial aspects of collecting or researching art, one which allows for foraging, scavenging, rummaging, worming. Like earthworms delving through scraps, we can really digest, percolate the past, cartographic thonia, getting lost in wormholes, finding, chewing with your eyes open. I often think about the way that Björk's music videos, Ivor Cutler's poetry, Ernst Haeckel's illustrations, and Ruth Asawa's sculptures conjure the same quality. Tracing these artworks has led me to an ecological understanding, a knowing beyond which feels like a wink through time. Connecting these disparate elements feels grounded in a method of archiving art history, which questions the very definition of what history is. Rhizomatic structures which burrow, curl, and submerge themselves only to be uncovered. The ekphrastic archive of an Instagram save folder. Folding, unfolding, outpouring, electric. The most significant thing that we can learn from non-human animals is maybe reciprocity. It feels important not to speak so certainly on these things. Who am I to label significance? Lowercase I, of course. The tangled web of elusive hierarchy projects itself into each microscopic encounter with forms, a sneaky gaze of discrimination. Cerebral headaches flip over and over. In pure form, the lack of words is an easy breath. Maybe in this moment we can embody this reciprocal motion, worming. Worming implies an entering or an exiting. You've certainly wormed your way into something, a fluid movement between spaces. Their fleshy pink bodies evade the pinning down. You cannot fold a worm into the shape of a word. Worms can travel through the rhizomes. Like the lotus root, a rhizome is a botanical structure that has both roots and shoots. Deleuze and Guattari propose this structure of interconnected living fibers, with no central point, no origin, and no particular form, unity, or structure, as a paradigm for knowledge and practice. The rhizome is emblematic of a horizontality. Like a mycelial net, the rhizome spreads out, all proliferating and without bounds. This rejects the notion of a traceable origin, or a father principle, an opening up to an all-embracing multiplicity. In this view, there is no distinction between the individual and the collective. I propose a rhizomatic viewing of art history to heal the hierarchical, patriarchal structures embedded in our gaze. Like an ant colony has memories that its individual members don't have. To unlearn the illusion of individuality is to learn from animals. We have never been individuals. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe. Worms act as a kind of memento of this interconnectedness. Through their more classic symbol, as a memento mori, Ivor Cutler's absurd ode to the humour of dark ecology sings, "Lying in the silken ground one day, I shall sense the buggies wriggle as they eat me away, singing, 'I believe in bugs. I truly believe in bugs.'" Reconciling the notion of death through a feeling of offering, a body being consumed by the earth. Cyclical structures which stretch, wriggling. the process of delving through scraps, nibbling, digesting, and regurgitating, a collage in motion, appropriated materials, fossilized pulp of burnt-up bodies. Maybe composting is the most worthy skill of art criticism. Maybe all art critics should be replaced by worms. In Vibrant Matter, Bennett explores the way in which worms are archivists. How do worms make history? They make it by making vegetable mold, which makes possible seedlings of all kinds, which makes possible an earth hospitable to humans, which makes possible the cultural artifacts, rituals, plans, and endeavours of human history. Worms also make history by preserving the artifacts that humans make. Worms protect. For an indefinitely long period of every object not liable to decay, which is dropped off the surface of the land, burying it beneath their castings, a service for which archaeologists ought to be grateful. The way death is enmeshed with the way that we collect, live, breathe, and inevitably return, a process of always returning. Haraway's description of worms, or chthonic ones, underpins the experience of viewing art, and also the experience of making art. Thonia being the subterranean landscape, the velvet underground. Haraway writes that chthonic ones demonstrate and perform the material meaningfulness of earth processes and critters. They writhe and luxuriate in manifold forms and manifold names. They make and unmake. They are made and unmade. Sensations of suspended webs, a primordial experience of insecthood and sculptors, spiders dreaming in functional craft, a mimicking hand, shadow play imitation, playful collaboration, reciprocal learning, regurgitation. Bourgeois' formidable spider mother towers and cradles. Asawa realizes the wire sculptures she crafts are the same shape as the pattern she made with her toes in the soil as a child. Heavy webs, medieval organicism sagging, remembering the feeling of toes dragging through soil, pulled along, kinetic flow patterns forming through earth and flesh, a childhood memory I can't account for, a theatre of imagined occurrences. Hoofed infancy cleft into scorched earth, enveloping inner worlds. Dropping off the aggregates of existence, dancing amongst some fragile taxonomy, tongue flicking over words, sounding out the semantics of each fallen object. I name thee. Bodies are just ideas about bodies. Words are just ideas about words. Heavy cerebrality returns. The fallibility of taxonomic knowledge ties to an illusory sense of individualism. The natural limits of such as the drawing around objects, smeared charcoal boundaries, and a belief in a specific objecthood. The intuitive feeling that everything is delicately interconnected flows over us when we listen. A communion of subjects. Ecological thought weaves its way into thinking about art. Ecological thought allows for the unbinding of hierarchy and binary, which opens up to a queer ecology. Artist Victoria Sin writes an electrifyingly erotic account of a fig tree and its pattern of growth on a host tree. A symbiotic knowing sprouts in the lines, to become the thing, in order to know the thing, that you came from and will go back to the thing, and so I was devoured in order to be born again. These words echo through the way I encounter the world. It makes me think about the mycologist Merlin Sheldrake and his book Entangled Life, the name itself conjuring a certain feeling of webby viriditas. Sheldrake reconciles the way talking about an alive world can create an illusory separation between yourself and the thing you are describing. Nature becomes something to be viewed, an idea on a pedestal. Firmly placing the book back into the world, in an ultimate act of mutual exchange, involved feeding the book back to the earth. He served it to some oyster mushrooms, so it would be digested, rotted by the very organisms which it describes. They then eavesdropped on the sound of these mushrooms digesting the book using electrodes. They are placed on the fungi, detecting the bioelectrical activity of these organisms, translating them into sound. The song that this act results in, feels like a hymn of reciprocal communion with the mycelial world. We make and unmake. We are made and unmade.